episode 1303 of the Multifamily Collective. Today I'm trying a little experiment. I do a tremendous amount of reading. I really enjoy, well, I don't enjoy one part of this, but that is the amount of paper that I go through. But I do print a lot of stories, and the reason I do this is because they become easy to carry, and I love marking things up, highlighting, writing names on it, the people I should share it with, but and then being able to do a little bit of marginalia where I write my thoughts or my questions in the margin of an article or a book for that matter. So I thought it would be interesting, if nothing else, for my own thought process or for me to think out loud about a topic, and in doing so, maybe provide some value to our multifamily collective audience. But the thing I read about today, let me back up. I came up with an acronym that I really enjoy that I think speaks to what is happening in the multifamily space, what is happening in businesses at large. And the acronym is ACEO. Automation, centralization, elimination, and outsourcing is what that stands for, and or what those letters stand for. One of the things I read about today in this article, Outsourcing, a multifamily solution. I'm not going to mention the vendor. I'm trying not to do that in these episodes where I sort of riff off of an article that I've read. But the story starts out by saying outsourced operations have continued to gain traction in the multifamily industry as new technology and providers emerge. I believe that to be true. I think there are a lot more opportunities to outsource things today. I know we were outsourcing things many years ago, decades ago. Things were being outsourced to third party operators, vendors, business partners. Even offshoring was a thing decades ago. But I think today it's easier to facilitate those things, especially in a cloud environment where you can outsource things. You can offshore, you can outsource, and things can be shared in the cloud pretty easily without a lot of friction. So that's definitely a thing. I think the areas of the business that are really interesting to me that could be impacted by ACEO, or automation, centralization, elimination, outsourcing, uh, are accounting and even HR, to include payroll, to include I think the only thing you can't include on an HR, you could do this, but I don't necessarily, I'm not necessarily an advocate for this, is that's the coaching and counseling or performance improvement plans. I don't think you can outsource that. You could, but I'm not a big advocate of that. Not a big fan of that. I think that's too close to the business, and that impacts culture. And if you're farming that out to a third party and you're expecting that third party to align completely with your culture, something that happens both micro and macro on a daily basis through all kinds of actions and 0 points of interaction, or 0 points of truth rather. I don't think you can do that, but not the point. I think HR and accounting are two things that are going to be impacted by outsourcing. They already are. And I just think that is going to become more and more prevalent in the coming, let's say, in the coming 12 to 24 months. That's a little bit of me licking my finger and waving it in the air for those of you who are listening to the podcast version of this. But I think the tools are there, and the tools are dynamic enough that you can actually outsource that stuff and create the kind of savings in your organization that creates or it gets you more towards a neutral basis for your property management company. So we're in the multifamily space. One of the chief aims that I have as the COO in our organization is to create a scenario where our corporate overhead becomes neutral to the business. And I think that we can do that through a CEO and or creating profit centers within the organization. Profit centers that make sense. Can't necessarily create a profit center just for the sake of making money to offset your corporate overhead if it's not beneficial to the client. I think you have to be really careful about that, but I think it is something that you can do. There are forms of that today, but you got to be careful about that. But I think those back office functions, those functions that aren't necessarily forward facing or client facing, you can achieve those things through that automation or centralization or elimination and outsourcing. So one of the other interesting lines in here, the efficiency of an outsourced relationship can be significantly beneficial, from cost cutting to business growth to flexibility. The possibilities are endless. The majority may outsource to cut costs, but the advantages can extend beyond financial freedoms. I think about, and I agree with that statement. I think about people being able to, in a remote work environment, those back office operations you can do from home, and you can do from anywhere, frankly, and you can do almost any time, right? So if you outsource something to a foreign country that is obviously in a different time zone than yours, that's okay. As long as, like, if you're working and you're producing input during the course of an 8-hour day here in America, let's say over in Europe or India or wherever, you're they're ahead, I believe, in terms of time. So your daytime here is their nighttime there. So you go to bed at night, it's day there, and they can get stuff done. I think I just said that opposite of the way it works. But anyway, while you're in bed, people in foreign countries are actually awake because it's daylight outside and they're getting things done. So there are benefits to outsourcing and getting things done in a different way. I also think there is an interesting dynamic when you outsource, uh, as it relates to your overall cost of overhead. So it's not just the reduction of headcount, which look, I think this is difficult because you certainly don't want to. Business is going to move at such a pace now that it is going to create scenarios where you don't need as many people to get as much done, or you can get a lot more done with fewer people. I don't want to be an advocate for cutting headcount. Maybe the headcount reduces by attrition. You just don't backfill positions over time. Really, in my head, that is the most advantageous way to do it, so that you're not impacting people's lives in an otherwise negative way. But I think what happens over a long bit of time is not only do you reduce your payroll while still getting as much done, if not more, you also reduce the overhead for that payroll. So there's a kind of a double savings there. So I think outsourcing is something that is going to pick up pace in the next 12 to 24 months. It is going to impact that white collar workforce, and it's going to happen in the areas of HR and accounting first and foremost. And I do think in the multifamily space, there is a risk that even positions, I think leadership and management are probably the last two things that get automated or centralized or eliminated or outsourced. I think it is the rote and routine back office work, accounting, HR, learning and development potentially, and other areas of the business that will feel the impact of technology in the coming 18 to 24 months, and certainly out and beyond that for sure. But I think you're going to see the pace of this pick up in the next 18 to 24 months. So all that being said, I'll link up to this article in the show notes so you can take a read and tell me what you think. All right, take care. We'll talk to you again soon.